Hello, information architecture students. This is Professor Schengili-Roberts, and for those who may be coming from outside the course, this is actually a course being offered by the University of Toronto, the Faculty of Information, INF 2170. This is the summer version of our information architecture course, which is being done wholly virtually in this particular instance because of, for reasons due to the pandemic. And so I'm delivering part of the lectures both as sort of asynchronously, so some are pre-recorded, such as this one, and then there are others which are followed up on Tuesday evenings, where the students enrolled in the program can actually see the rest of the material that's being offered. So with having said that, here I'm going to be talking now in this particular lecture that's going to be a studio session happening on Tuesday, and this is a dedicated time for the students to work on actively working using tools to help work with the information architecture for their targeted websites. So we're going to be using an online tool provided by Optimal Workshop called Treejack, and that allows us to do what's known as a tree test. What is a tree test? Basically, this is a way to test whether or not the navigational hierarchy and the labels that it uses make sense to those who are going to be trying out the website. So the basic idea behind this is that you will be constructing essentially a version of the hierarchy, and hopefully this is a version with your own improvements that you've built into things, and then you try this out on a group of people, and you see whether or not the things are working as you expected. So let's talk now a little bit about the idea of mental models. This has come up in some of the previous classes, and what is it? This is essentially what people who are using the website bring in terms of how they organize content in their own heads as they come to the website, and how they then react to what they see based on what they're reading in front of them. So as I say here, people organize the world in their heads in a way that is often different from you, the designer. And again, this is one of the chief things that you need to keep in mind as an information architect: is you're not designing things for yourself. You're not even, your part of your job is to really advocate on behalf of the users of the website. So in a way, you're not really even designing for the clients, so to speak. I mean, that is clearly you're here to help them get the information that they want to their users, but you're not customizing it in a way that is specifically for the clients. It's for the clients' users to better enable the users, the audiences that these particular websites have to find the information on the website. So, and then there's basically sort of two ways that this can happen. That one is that you can be an outsider to the domain, and as a working IA, I have often run across projects where I simply do not have the domain knowledge. That's not too surprising. There are many very niche websites out there, and I've had I've been lucky to actually have worked on what I would consider like some very niche sites, which are very cool. And in some ways, there's kind of the advantage in that I am not an expert, so I need to talk to the experts to have a good idea as to why they're coming to the website and what are they looking for. So as I say here, you're an outsider to the domain, so that means you have to try to learn things. But it can also happen from the opposite perspective. If in fact and this is the case of many of the clients, is that if they become too accustomed to their subject, they then perhaps forget some of the intermediate steps necessary for people to properly go from point A to point B. So as I say here, vexingly, it also happens when you become accustomed to the domain, but your users are outside of the domain or simply viewing it from a different perspective. So basic rule of thumb here, you are not the user, and you need to understand how they think of the world. So that is a nice potted definition of a mental model. So there are, in this case, we have two sets of mini tests for learning about mental models. So we've already done one of them. That's the card sort exercise. And this essentially looks at how people group information together. The tree testing application we're going to be using looks at how do people look for information. So we were with the card sort, we had a bunch of labels, and we're trying to get people to sort out where they think these things would belong. In tree testing, essentially we provide them with all the labels, and then we ask them questions saying, you're looking for this particular thing, where would you then find it within the hierarchy that we're going to be presenting to you? So what's it good for? It basically asks two main questions. How do people find information? And how well does our navigation scheme actually work? So again, tree test / Treejack in our case, will allow us to find out what labels actually confuse people. Still, because this is a great tool for helping to further refine our navigation labels, and what aspects of the organization in general are also confusing. So in terms of how this works, well, you have to set up a navigational tree, and I'll get into a bit more of that later. And then you have to, based on your user research, you then come up with tasks. You then describe these tasks that you want people to complete on the website. And also, and as I say here, avoid using the labels in the navigation tree. So in other words, like you don't want to give an obvious tip-off to where people want to go. So you want to be, you want to say, can you please, you don't want to phrase a question exactly like, how can you find, XYZ, and then you have, as the title of the web page, is you have found XYZ. You don't want to make it that obvious. You want to make it so that someone who's looking for information will look through the hierarchy, and when they see something, it's like they'll go, aha, that clearly must be the place where I want to go. So now I'm going to switch over to looking at Treejack. Again, thank you very much to the people at Optimal Workshop for providing this to us. And I'm going to be looking at here a website which I know is going to be familiar to everybody. This is the Region Appeal website. This is the same one I use for doing the demo of the card sort. So this is one that we're all hopefully familiar with. So when you come to doing the setup for your Treejack within Optimal Workshop, you're going to be seeing something very similar to this. Now I'm going to be switching back between a couple of pages here, and you'll see why in a reason. But the first thing that you'll be doing is going to the setup page, and you'll be putting in the study name. So in this case, I have Region Appeal. This would be the name for your target website. You might want to throw in the current year, 2020, for example, in this particular case. And then it also has a study link. And this is what you would then be emailing to people who are going to be testing out the hierarchy that you set up. And then you have some other things here, such as the language, and I'm assuming that this is going to be done in English. And then there's some other things that, for the most part, are available to paid users only. Now, when it comes to the tree, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I want to show this first, and I hope so bear with me a moment. So this is essentially showing a essentially completed version of a navigational hierarchy, and arguably this is actually going slightly overkill. This is actually going like a level or two deeper than is actually strictly necessary for you to do. But again, this is just to sort of show how things actually can work. So in this case, the Peel homepage, that is the top level, that is the home page, and then under that are all the main secondary navigation elements. So we have Helping Hands, Health Services, Housing, Public Works, Communities in Peel, and then Regional Government. And within these, you can see that we have individual sections under here, childcare, and then we have the names of pages, that come under that. About Us, childcare centers, childcare providers, advanced publications, and then so on and so forth. And if I actually do expand all, you can see that that's what we've got here. And again, I've essentially mapped out the pages for this website down to, in this case, to the third level, and that's sorry, strictly speaking, to the fourth level. This is so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is, I think, in most cases perhaps overkill, but in this case, in this particular case, it works fairly well. You have to judge this in some cases, you have to judge this for yourselves. So I'm going to collapse all. So I want to show you this point, something else, because you're not going to see this when you come into this cold. If you're setting up a brand new study, this is actually what you're going to see. So you have the home page here, and then you have the first node. So if I have here, it says homepage, you then have this icon here to then rename it, and then you can put in the name for for the target homepage. I recommend you put in something like homepage to help describe it, and then you have first node, and then you would add that here. You could then rename it, but then you could also add child pages to it, and you can also go here and you can also add child nodes, which would, so if I click here, it says add a child. I can then throw in second node here, and then if I want to throw in a page that then falls under this, add a child page, and there we go. So that allows you to do this by hand. Now, what I'm going to recommend, however, is that there is a nice feature here called bulk import. And what you can do is that you can create a CSV file in a spreadsheet program. And so long as the columns are distinct in terms of how the navigation levels and how they're set up, that will allow you to import the results into this, and then you can tweak things. And then if you ever make a mistake, you can always just click on delete tree, and then essentially you can start again. Give you a sense as to what that actually looks like in terms of a spreadsheet. So here's the one for the Peel website. So essentially, the first column is the home page. The second column is then the main navigation elements: the helping hands, health services, housing, public works, which again you'll remember from the card sort. And then the third level again has the main things that then come that are immediate children, in this case of helping hands. So we have childcare, long-term care, trans health, Ontario Works, housing, volunteers, and news. And then I've gone one step further and then thrown in the pages about that go under that. So about us, child. Again, you need to judge whether or not that's going to, if that's going to be one too many perhaps for your particular target site. But again, this is just to sort of give you an idea as to how this is done. And then what you would do is that you would then once you had constructed this in a spreadsheet program, you then export as a .csv file, which you then would bulk import into this. And then the nice thing is that you can you see at a glance. I'm just going to go click back to here. You can see at a glance if things have perhaps gone, like if in fact, like, oh no, this perhaps should go in a different level. You can then go back and essentially blow away the version of this tree, make the tweak in the spreadsheet program. I actually find that's an easier way of actually doing things. And then you have like a set version, which you can then also very quickly change if you want to do iterations of this. So that's the basics as to how you would then set it up. Okay, so now what you then come up with is then you come up with the questions that you want people to answer as they work their way through the hierarchy. So that's what the tasks are. You're asking the questions, and you're also defining what the correct answers are for things. So in this case, and what I'm asking is essentially questions as to where people can find things on the website. So in this case, locate the page where you would expect to find information on childcare centers in Peel Region. That might be a little bit too leading because there is in fact a page called childcare centers. So you might want to be a little bit more oblique. You might want to say something more along the lines of, say, where would you expect to find information on childcare in general within Peel Region. Another one, for example, locate the page where you would expect to volunteer to help with people in a long-term care facility. So in this case, and again, we have and underneath each of these is define the correct answers, and you would actually, go through the hierarchy yourself, and then essentially say, yes, in this case, it's join our team under long-term care. And then we have here, locate the page where you would expect to find out how to use the Peel Regional Transit System for those with disabilities. And in this case, the correct answer is TransHelp, and then using TransHelp. Now, what I want to find is, I'm just going to see, actually, hang on a second, because there we go. This is what I want to look at. Okay, so locate the page where you'd expect to find information on getting publicly funded vaccination programs within Peel Region. And that happens to be under Health Services, Public Health, Immunization, and Communicable Diseases. So note that, vaccination is not actually in the title, and arguably that's the sort of thing you should be striving for in the questions that you're setting for the people. So having said that, now what I want to show you is the before I get into that, I should say just to sort of round things off. So messages, this is basic information as to what the user will see when they come and visit the study. So this is the welcome screen information and basic instructions, and this information is essentially already there. That's fine. You don't have to change anything. You can now we don't have access to. Actually, strictly speaking, we do have access to this, but essentially in this case, you're going to have a targeted set of people that you want to be sending this to. So I wouldn't worry too much about the questionnaire. And again, we have other things here which are available, strictly speaking, to those who have a paid plan for this. And as I say, Optimal Workshop has given us the tools, but we don't have access to the full range of things because we're not looking to brand things. We're just trying to do this on a wholly sort of educational basis. And then information here on how to recruit. So this is, in other words, how you can then send this link out, and you can actually get a shortened version of the URL if you want. You can have it set as a QR code, and then you can also immediately share it to Twitter if you have a Twitter account logged in. Same for Facebook and for LinkedIn. Okay, cool. So now you have a sense as to how this is set up. In terms of how this actually then looks in terms of the analysis, well, once you have results that have come in, you could then click on results here, and this will give you access to the analysis. So here's the analysis, and essentially what it is that it gives you an idea as to how people actually spent their time looking at the results. And actually, before I get to, I should actually have a quick look at, just to give you a sense as to how many people actually looked at this and where the participants actually came from. So here's a participant list. In this case, 18 out of 28 completed the study, and 10 people in this particular case abandoned it. That's in some ways, if you have too many questions, people will just will want to just stop and just like, okay, I've had enough of this. So there's a good reason to try to keep this focused and short. Here's the amount of time it took on average for people to complete it. In this case, also the location where all the participants were actually doing this test from. And then we have those who were chart showing the success score for all of the tasks. In this case, basically 2/3. So in other words, this is actually fairly good because it's suggesting that for the most part, 2/3 of the people coming to do the tasks that we set for them, they got it right. And right meaning that, this is where we believe the information should be, and that is actually where the people actually went to click on things. The directness score looks at essentially people who actually went down the right path the first time and clicked on something and didn't feel they then had to backtrack. So that's another cool thing that Treejack in this case actually looks at, is that if people go down a path and go, I don't think this is correct, and then they go back up the hierarchy and then they go down a different branch, that's another thing it measures, and that's what's known as, that's called directness in this particular case. So if they go down the path and they don't backtrack, then again that's a good thing because people are clearly not getting lost, and in this case 70% of the people who were tested actually, didn't have to backtrack through the hierarchy. And again, that's actually a fairly decent score. You can hope for more, but again, this gives you a sense as to what's out there. And this particular graph shows you all of the individual tasks, and is numbered by the individual task numbers that you set up previously. Now, this by itself doesn't necessarily show a lot, but if you hover over it, you then get the actual questions that they correspond to. And the one I want to find is the one that talks about, here we are, this is the one about the vaccination programs. So the one in dark green shows the direct success, so people who essentially went down the right path from the start and then, found exactly what they're looking for. Then the light green is indirect success, so that might be a case where they then, had to come back and go down a different path before finding what they wanted. And then you can also see here, in this case, not direct failure, which is a dark red, but an indirect failure. They actually went essentially down a different path. And, that actually is a direct failure there. They basically, they actually did have some trouble there. And then we have in gray the direct skip. In other words, there are people who simply missed out on and just skipped that particular part of the question potentially. So as you can see in this case, the results were overall fairly good for this, 56%, but not, it could be better. What was actually the best? Let's see, this one seems to be, here we are. This was pretty good. Locate where you would expect to find information on events happening in PO region. Okay, and I believe that is essentially called something like an events page. So again, perhaps that's leading things a little bit too much in this case. Anyways, this is the initial sort of information that you can expect to get out of this. It's there's lots and lots of detail here, which is great. So going back to the analysis, now here it is looking at things task by task. So I want to go down to, again, just to sort of show you an example we've already looked at a little bit in depth. So here is the one about vaccination. Locate the page where you would expect to find information on getting publicly funded vaccination programs within Peel region. And you can see here in this pie chart, here is the the overall success. People who then looks at the direct and indirect success, and then the overall percentages. In this case, 72 for direct and indirect. So these two parts of the pie here essentially put together, but then we also have those who then failed it. And basically what failure means in this case is, they did not go to what we consider the right page for the answer to this. And this also looks at direct and indirect versions of things. And then we have those who then skip. So, pardon me. And then what we have over here is, the average time it took for people to complete this particular task. So in this case, it was all of 14.19 seconds. The overall success rate, and again the directness rate. And the other cool thing that you can look at is view the pie tree. And you then get a dynamic display, which gives you this. And it's not going to show entirely in the screen here. I'm just going to scroll it a bit here. But again, this gives you a nice sort of sense as to, essentially, as you can see here, went down the right path, went down the wrong path, went back. And this essentially looks at the various users coming to the page and where they went. So here we are, PO home page, and then they went perhaps to health services, and then from health services they then perhaps went to long-term care, and then it's like, oh no, okay, that's not the right place. Then they go to public health. Okay, and then we see this thing called immunization and communicable diseases. That is where they then should that's where they would then click on that and say this is a place where I believe this would be. But you can see that people are in fact hunting around to some of the other pages in this particular type of view here. So they go to health services, long-term care. No, clearly that's not it. They go here. They go to public works. It's like, public works? What? Really? Okay, that's a rather interesting answer. Regional government? Yeah, clearly that's not going to be it. But things like environmental health or family health, yeah, that's not unreasonable. But again, you can see the gray they backtrack and then they come back here. Okay. So there's a lot of data here. And again, for the purposes of the project that you're working on, again, you don't want to go into too much depth here. The information is available. The key thing is to extract from it what you believe is useful. And again, you might find it useful to actually do more than one iteration based on the questions. Now in this particular case, I've got a whole lot of questions here. I recommend, in fact, scaling it back, making it fit the needs of your particular target website. So don't go overboard in this particular case. So again, you're not going to have as many things here. Now, some other interesting things that come up is what's known as the first click. So in other words, where do people tend to go first within the hierarchy to be able to go to where they think they're going? So I'm just going to go back to the vaccination one, which is number 7. So locate the page where you expect to find information on getting publicly funded vaccination programs. And, the majority of people clicked first on health services. And, if that is actually where things was placed. So that is in this case a particularly, this is a good setting in this case. And if they didn't do it on the first one, then they came back to it on the second click. So in other words, they visited this first, 78% visited this first, and those that didn't, then 94% came back to this and sort of realized that this was the path that they wanted to go down to. And then we have information on the paths. So now I'm going to zip down to, here we are. I want to go to number 7. There we go, and it's loading up. And you can see, this is actually showing the individual, for all of the 18 participants, showing, the actual individual information on all of the paths. Now, this, again, might be getting into more data than is strictly necessary for your analysis, but it's good to know that it's all here. And then destinations, we have, again, a participant destination mapping here, showing essentially in green which ones are the essentially and there will always be one area which is where things are actually located, and then where people actually ended up going. So we have correct, incorrect, and incorrect being a large number of respondents, and then incorrect in a kind of in a red, looking at like fairly high level. And in this case, for task number 2, question number 2, you can see that quite a number of people went here, and that is actually not good in this particular case, because that is actually not where that particular thing is supposed to be located. However, for number 7, here we are. I mean, a high degree over here. 13 of the 18 participants clicked on this, and again, that is what you're looking for in this particular case. So again, there's a lot of data here. Choose the aspects of this which are useful to you when trying to sort out how to do things in terms of the hierarchy. So now what I want to do is give you a quick look as to what exactly is it the participants are actually going to see when they do the Treejack. So this is the typical home page. And it says here the activity shouldn't take longer than 10 to 15 minutes. And in fact, I recommend with any luck that's going to be that's going to be a bit longer, because in my particular case I have a lot of questions, but in your case I think you should try to winnow it down to one of the things you really want to test. So you're supposed to help us to organize the content on the website. You continue, and it provides instructions on how it works. You'll be asked to find a certain item and presented with a list of links. Click through the list until you arrive at one that you think will helps you complete the task. If you take a wrong turn, you can go back by clicking one of the links above. This is not a test of your ability. There are no right or wrong answers. That's it. Let's get started. Continue. So, start task. Locate the section where you would expect to find Region Appeal press releases from 2001. Okay, start task. Here's what I'm presented with. Okay, Region Appeal press releases. Okay, well, I'm looking at this. Helping Hands, no. Health, no. Housing, no. Public Works, well, maybe. Communities Appeal, who knows, what does that mean? I don't know. Regional Government, okay, maybe here. and then it shows me the next level. And then it's like region appeal press releases, appeal council council meetings, how we're organized, reports. Maybe it's reports. And then okay, and at this point I can, depending on, like I might say, okay, maybe it's simply other, and I click on that, and you see at the very end, that's where you then get a chance to say, okay, I'd find it here. Now in this case, I don't think that's where this is actually going to be. So I'm actually going to backtrack, and I'm going to go to, well, appeal council maybe? Let's go there. An agenda, minutes, decisions, council meetings. No, I don't think that's it either. News, maybe it's new. Oh, okay. Press release. Oh, okay. And then in this case, I can say I'd find it here. So then you click on that, and then it goes to the next question. And I'm not going to show you this for all of the questions, because there's 20 questions here. But that is the type of experience that you can expect your users to actually see in this case. So if you want to take a look at this from the perspective of the interviewee before you actually start the test, here's the URL for the Region Appeal one, and again, go ahead and get a sense as to how this works from the interviewee perspective. It may help just to sort of help you come up with the right types of questions to ask. So as I say here, and again, just sort of continuing on with how to set this up, you want to develop the tasks, the questions, based on what you'd expect people to do at the website. So you want to ensure you use wording that matches what users are trying to do in their own particular situation, scenario. Try to avoid using the language of the website or the item itself, and phrase the task as, find the right thing or locate this particular thing rather than click X. Yes. So here's some other examples. So, on the toronto.ca website, I need to get rid of my used batteries. So where would you then go on that website to do that? For if you go to Waterfront Toronto, I want to send in a complaint. Well, how would I then traverse that particular hierarchy to do that? And then, the so on and so forth for the other websites that you see here. So Toronto Police, I want to be a cop, but I'm only 17-year-old. How do I go about, what is the learning I would need to do to become a police officer? For Serious Eats, I just ate risotto for the first time, and it was great. It was amazing. I want to know how to do it, how to make my own. So, all of these information, these are the types of questions you would want to ask users coming to your target website. And again, what are we learning? We're assessing the navigation structure. We're not assessing the people. By the way, I should say that if you do have cases where people are coming to the website and they're not completing things, or they're putting in obviously wrong answers because they're not engaged with doing this particular study, you actually can remove those results from all of those that are answered, and that is in a similar manner to how you can remove users or remove the results from individual users that we saw in the initial card sort study. It's the same type of control. You also get a chance to see how many people get it right or wrong with the navigation, the paths people took before they selected the right or wrong answer, and how long it took for them to complete the task. And what I'm going to show you now is essentially, here's a repeat of the types of things that you can see. So in this case, you scroll over this, and again, you see, the actual question and the direct success, the direct and indirect success, direct and indirect failure, and then anything that is then skipped. You also then get this particular sort of pie chart looking at information, going in a little bit deeper, providing also information on the time taken and the relative directness of things. And then you also saw the exploded pie version here, which sort of shows all the different paths that people actually ended up taking. So, again, use what is going to be useful in your particular case. What I would say is that if for something, you might want to have an example of something that works, really works well, and which would actually be a fairly small version of something like this. And like the pie is, say, 3/4 filled. That means that yes, we here's what we thought, and we thought that this this particular wording and hierarchy would work well, and lo and behold, it actually did work well. That's great. And then it would actually might also be useful to show kind of the opposite of that. Here's something that we thought would be useful. We phrased it in this particular manner, put it in this part of the hierarchy, and nobody could find it. So clearly that's wrong, and then we would want to come back and perhaps put this in a different place in the hierarchy or rename it. So that is the sort of thing that you're really going to be looking for. Other interesting things, again, I've already talked a little bit about this. First click, what did participants click on first? The paths, where did they go? Destinations, where did the participants actually end up in the end? Some notes, you should try to select tasks that are high value. In other words, things people frequently do at the website and things that are problematic. So you may not have the chance to do a full investigation of everything in terms of the hierarchy and labeling on the website. So focus on the ones that are important to the audiences that you've identified who are coming to this website. And note that you could also do tree testing on the actual website itself. However, in this case, you would end up with a lot of visual clutter that can then mess up the results. So this is just, it's text only. And in this, there's nothing else getting in the way of that is potentially can confuse people, that people really ought to sort of be able to focus like a laser on exactly where they need to go in the website. And if they have trouble at this stage, it's arguably going to be worse with all the rest of the quote unquote visual clutter that makes up the rest of the site. So again, this is that's another reason for why doing a tree test is really quite useful. And now, some sort of final notes here. Note that Treejack deliberately hides the lower layers of the navigation tree while you're completing the task. This is so users can't use just the visual search into different parts of the hierarchy. So they click into, in other words, this replicates the actual web experience for in most cases, because they would not actually normally see the say the third or say fourth level order pages in the fourth level in my case for the Peel Region website that we have here. And also note that in Treejack, if a node has children, the node cannot be the answer to the question. It has to be the end page. So if the question is here, locate the page where you'd expect to find recent information relating to ambulance services, it's the end page is not the node, which is ambulance and emergency nurse services, or strictly, or even the one above it, health services. The person has to click on the actual sort of end destination page. So the page at the bottom level of the hierarchy, that's where they have the option of clicking the I'd find it here button. And that's basically all I want to cover for this particular studio session that's happening on Tuesday evening. I'm hoping this gives you, the background information you need to be able to do the Treejack test properly. And again, my thanks to Optimal Sort for providing us with these tools. It is much appreciated. And also, I want to say also a thank you to my colleague Tony Tang, who came up with the original version of this particular slide deck, which I have put my own stamp on. So thanks again, and good luck on Tuesday evening.